Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Extravaganza, and it just gets more sad every week as we get closer to the end of the fantasy football season, although it is playoff time in most of your leagues. I was already in a playoff last week, survived. I'm in that Scott Fishbowl, Huss, and it's like 2,500 people or whatever. I have made round 4 of the Scott Fishbowl playoffs. We are down to the final, I don't know if it's 1,000 or 500, and now it'll be limited, knocked down to like 500, then 100, then 30 or something. So still alive, buddy. Still alive.
Nice. That's a wild league. I've never heard of anything like that with so many teams in it. But it's all about survival right now. Did you survive week 14? Did you make it to the playoffs? Did you need, say, 5 points from Kyler Murray on Monday Night Football?
Oh, how about this story?
Go down?
Man. That was your buddy that got screwed, right?
Yeah, this is a all-timer. Let me get this text because he was really hot last night. 5 points. All I needed was 5 effing points to beat Liam and Mike and would have earned the last playoff spot. I had a top 10 running back starting in Ramondre Stevenson and picked up Devontae Parker as a flex receiver. Both left the bleeping game in the first quarter with injuries and not returning. That is my life story in fantasy right there. And then a long, all caps expletive to finish it up. GP, we're pouring one out for you. We'll miss you in the playoffs. There was a lot of that last night. The second, and of course, I was on the Kyler Murray over rushing prop yesterday from the Lock Shop. And I grimaced along with Cardinals fans, fantasy players, and everyone that's a fan of Kyler Murray when he went down in a weird, it was a non-contact injury. To be honest, at the start, it didn't look bad at all. Obviously, things are not always as they seem.
I sort of originally thought Achilles. You know, you usually see that with the non-contact. You're like, oh, Achilles going to go or something.
But I will say this, once again, the gang at Coolbet, the best customer service in the biz. It didn't take long. We didn't have to ask. Very shortly after the fact, Patty and the boys put out the tweet. Let me just get the exact verbiage of it because it was injury refund alert. We're refunding the following wagers and bet credits, losing straight Kyler Murray prop bets. Any parlays or bet builders where a Murray prop was the only losing leg, all bet credits will be issued over the next 24 hours. So by my count, that is 3 acts of kindness that our friends at Coolbet have delivered. Partner parlay last week, the soccer parlay with the goals on Thursday, and now this. I feel very fortunate. There's a lot of people in this business that maybe aren't very scrupulous. We work with the best. So shout out to Pat and the gang for doing this. Made a lot of cool bettors very happy after starting their Monday night off. Very pissed off.
Yeah, thank you very much. Looking after the cool bettors, the lock shoppers, and everybody else who's playing over there at CoolBet. And if you want to sign up for an account today, use the code LOCKSHOP when you do. We're going to give you our week 15 waiver wire targets. We're going to give you our week 15 starts of the week. By the way, shout out to my boy Jared Goff, back-to-back starts of the week. Nailed it. Won't be going this week against the Jets. Good defense. We'll get to that in a second. But we did have an issue pop up in the Listener League, Huss. So fill the people in. You fired me a text yesterday afternoon. I was oblivious to this. And to be honest with you, I'm very disappointed in ESPN for this. But, I should have taken care of it earlier. But explain to the people what happened.
Okay, so being one of the top teams in the league, I was very much ready for the playoffs in the postseason. And I was getting ready to look ahead. Who am I playing? And for the first time all year, I clicked on the projected playoff bracket. And I look at it. And there's only 4 teams in the playoffs, and then there's some consolation bracket of 8 teams. The semifinal was set for weeks 15 and 16, and the final was set for weeks 17 and 18. I'm like, what is this? So I fired you a text over, and obviously that wasn't the way it was intended to be. And again, full disclosure, folks, there's no money in this league. This is a bit of a fun pride league with the folks that entered in the Fantasy Football Extravaganza. So at minimum, I thought we would be doing the 6, if not 8. And I think 8 makes more sense, in a league like this. It wasn't something that had really been talked about. So whatever, you just went in and made the change. Now, somewhat controversially, you probably get the 8th seed of this entire
which
thing.
Which is not a great look. But with that being said, I mean, that's not why we did it. I didn't even know until after I made the switch. I was just like, oh, I didn't even actually know until it was brought up in the chat last night that I had made the playoffs, even though I had been on a miraculous run as of late in the second half of the season. I will say this from a commissioner. So when you first texted me, I said, this makes no sense. Why would ESPN default to that? So then I was like, did I change that? So then I went over because we've got the AM Nasty league over on the radio station, and I use ESPN for that as well. And I go and look, and sure enough, it's also set to 2-week playoffs ending on the final week of the season. I don't know how ESPN's default playoff setting is the worst possible playoff setting. So I switched it over there. I'm first in that league, so it does impact me the other way because I'll have to play in the first round. And then and this one I flipped over as well. So I will say, if there was money on the line in this league, we would have either left it or we would have gone to a league-wide vote. But there's no money on the line. Nobody has anything invested in this. Everybody seemed pretty cool with it. One guy wasn't. And I think the expansion to 5 teams got him into the playoffs too. So it is what it is. It's a fun league.
The 4th spot. I think he was fighting for the 4th spot.
Yeah, I think he finished 5th. So
okay. Well, then congratulations. The bottom line is top teams like
he did finish 4th.
Boys, like the Golden Boys are ready to take on all comers. And so who's the matchup? Am I playing you now?
No, I have to go up against the number 1 seed. I'm playing Blame Canada. Golden Boys gets Fractured but Whole. And then Dirty Randy gets the Suckiest Sucks. And Eckler's Army takes on the AM Nasty Snacks. So we'll see how it plays out. I really hope I don't go on a run and win this league. Just eliminate me this week. I don't care about it. I've won the listener league 2 times already in the first 4 seasons. So I
actually hope you do win it now, just so this can be the most controversial move of all time. But hey, this is a good note right now. If you are in an ESPN league, like certainly a new one that you set up this year, go check the playoffs because it might not be the way you thought you set it up originally. So that's that for this. Good luck to everyone, to the 4 teams that missed the playoffs. Even with the expanded unit, you guys didn't cut the mustard and we're out of it. So there's always next year.
All right. Let's get into it. Waiver wire targets, week 15. Huss, some interesting names out there. Quarterback position, I think there's a couple of interesting names. Who do you like this week, Huss?
Well, listen, I mean, obviously, at this point, I mean, if you're jumping on the waiver wire, desperate to throw a guy in to start, you're probably in a tough spot. There is one running back that I think has the potential to, I mean, I guess it all depends on what's up with Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey's been so good with the Niners, but he's always been on the injury report. And now we're going into a short Thursday night game against the Seahawks. And we saw Jordan Mason get some action and some touches last game when they were running all over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Although it was a lot of passing led by Purdy. Purdy's hurt right now. It wouldn't surprise me if the game script for the 49ers is to run the football 50 times in this game. I mean, almost like, remember the NFC Championship game? I think Jimmy G was 6 of 8 passing. I mean, Kyle Shanahan knows that they can dominate on the ground. So listen, CMC is going to get his, but I think we're probably talking about another running back getting a piece of that as well. So even if it's just for a handcuff for the rest of the playoffs, if you have CMC, I definitely grab Mason. And there was 2 receivers named Moore that sort of popped last week. Moore in Houston had, I believe, over 20-point game. They're going to be going up against a nice matchup against the Chiefs. You'd have to think the Chiefs are going to put up a ton of points. There'll be opportunities for Davis Mills, probably. Hell, they could have 3/4 of garbage time in this one. So I would say Seymour is one. And then Elijah Moore on the Jets. is a player that certainly I think has gained target share with the benching of Zach Wilson. Not to mention, it just seems like the receivers are more relevant. I mean, as much as Zach Wilson was 5-2, I think his passing totals were like 180 yards a game.
Yeah,
I mean,
nothing.
very, very pedestrian. So Garrett Wilson's the dog there right now. But Moore's close behind. And of course, they've got this matchup with the Lions who can score, but can also give them up. So both of those are intriguing receiver possibilities for this week and potentially for the playoffs. Talk to us about the quarterback position, because there's some people that need quarterbacks. I luckily, Dusty, a week or two ago, someone had dropped Jared Goff. I guess they had him for a bye week. They didn't need him. I jumped on him for insurance.
Yes.
And sure enough, Kyler Murray gets knocked out last night. So I'm rolling. I'm going to have to play Jared Goff. He's certainly better than anyone available on the waiver wire, because Kyler Murray owners right now are scrambling if you've sort of been a one quarterback team. Although, considering he'd been injured, I'm sure you would have had to have picked someone else up. Hopefully he's still on your roster. But that's going to be an interesting test for the Lions, who have been so great offensively, going up against one of the best defenses in the league, and Sauce Gardner and the New York Jets.
Well, and that's, I mean, we could tie this into another waiver wire claim. I know he was banged up really bad last game, but Mike White's good to go. He gets the Detroit Lions this week. I mean, if you don't have one of the top 8 or 9 quarterbacks in fantasy right now, I mean, I think Mike White's probably in that 11 to 15-ish range against a really juicy Detroit Lions matchup this week. This guy throws a ton. Like, when he's in, he throws a ton, and we'll circle back around to it during our starts of the week. Not that Mike White's going to be one of my starts of the week, but one of his weapons is. I'm going to get to that a little bit later on. But so I think if you're desperate, for example, if you've lost Kyler Murray this week and you need somebody, and you're probably going to have to play it week to week maybe now, Mike White this week against the Detroit Lions would be an excellent start. I'd have no problem starting Mike White, considering how much he throws. Running back position is kind of interesting. If Zonovan Bam Knight still kicking around out there, I think he's still available in about 35% of leagues. 71 yards on 17 carries, had a touchdown this past week. Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers in that Scott Fishbowl I was talking about, Huss. I lost CEH, and A.J. Dillon was on bye this week. I went on the waiver wire, and Chuba Hubbard was there, and I picked him up this week. He had a touchdown. The Panthers are running the ball a ton right now. We're talking like 40, like since they went back to Sam Darnold, I think I saw a number, 40 touches per game for the two running backs combined. And Chuba Hubbard seems to be trending in the right direction. As far as that snap share goes, he's more targeted in the passing game as well. So it depends on how deep your league is. But if you're in a tough spot for a running back, Chuba Hubbard's not the worst thing in the world. I've been saying it. I don't know how many leagues he's available in now. In a 12-team league, he's probably still out there. But Jerick McKinnon finally paid off. The concern I have for Jerick McKinnon, Huss, and I started him in 2 or 3 leagues, 2 for sure, possibly 3 leagues this week. So the one was a playoff matchup. I had Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson all out this week. I started Jerick McKinnon at running back, and he saved the day for me in the postseason. Here's my concern with Jerick McKinnon, Hassan. You can tell me about this. To me, it seems like they go to him when it's really important, like when they're in a game. And they've got a schedule coming up where I'm not too sure how many games they're going to be in. I wonder if they kind of just pack it on Pacheco here for a little bit. So where do you think the usage of Jerick McKinnon's going to be at?
Yeah, listen, I've been high on McKinnon. I think he'll be involved in the offense, but I think you're exactly right. Now, let's not forget, I was just thinking about this before we went on the show. The Chiefs were embarrassing the Broncos in that game on Sunday. It was 27-0 in the first half, and the Chiefs had the ball. Mahomes throws a pick. It goes right back for a touchdown. And then he threw another one, a deflected ball that ended up being picked up, and it went in. And all of a sudden, it's a game again. I have a feeling that the Chiefs, because of what's happened, and this is a couple times where they've had leads and they just sort of, okay, we're winning this game, and they let up on the gas. And they almost got dealt a very, very hard lesson. A lesson that they got taught in the AFC Championship game last year, blowing that 21-3 lead against the Bengals. I think we're going to see Andy Reid keep the foot on the gas. So I do think McKinnon will be involved, but in a game like this against the Texans that has a real tough time stopping the run, I think this is going to be Pacheco's best game maybe of the season and his young career. I think he'll have the most touches. I think he'll probably have the longest average per yard. And you're right. I mean, McKinnon is a player. Come playoff time, we are going to see a ton. He might be the guy in the backfield that gets the most touches, that does the most damage. But yeah, you're right. Going into the rest of
just
the
a little
schedule,
worried,
at least through the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah.
I think it's a great time to roster Isaiah Pacheco if you're able to have him. And as I said, there'll be some other guys that'll be options, but Jerick McKinnon is absolutely startable. It just depends on what your other options are.
I think I'm probably going to flex him. Actually, let me run this by you. So I got in the playoffs in that 16-team league. I won last week. I got a bunch of different decisions to make. I've got Jared Goff, Daniel Jones, and Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Goff's projected to have the fewest points out of all of them, but I don't know how much faith I have in Jones against Washington or Deshaun Watson in general. But anyway, running back position, I've got Antonio Gibson, Aaron Jones, and A.J. Dillon. And then I have Jerick McKinnon. Would you flex Jerick McKinnon ahead of Isaiah McKenzie, Chase Claypool, Cortland Sutton, Jamison Williams, or A.J. Dillon? I could run both Jones and A.J. Dillon in a nice matchup for Green Bay this week. So I don't know. Like I'm kind of torn. Should I flex A.J. Dillon or Jerick McKinnon this week? That's what it kind of comes down to.
And what is it? Green Bay's playing on Monday nights
against the Rams.
Wouldn't that be something to have both of the Packer running backs in a playoff
on a Monday night in a playoff matchup?
Still in it at that point, and it is relevant. To be honest, I think McKinnon's probably the play. I mean, unless you wanted to go with the two Green Bay guys, there's
I could go two Green Bay guys ahead of Antonio Gibson if I wanted.
Yeah, Gibson. Yeah. Although you know what, I think I think both he and Brian Robinson are going to be very relevant.
They're both startable too. I know.
Giants. Absolutely. Yeah, you've got some good choices right now. If anything, trying to get the max points, I'd probably go away from starting both Green Bay guys and roster McKinnon and Gibson. But that'll be a very difficult decision.
We got a question on the live stream before we get to our starts of the week here. Cole Beasley, Buffalo. Put him on the practice roster, bringing him out of retirement, which says something what Buffalo thinks of their offense right now. And T.Y. Hilton to the Dallas Cowboys. And the question was from Piss Jug. He says, are either worth a pickup? And, I mean, if you're in the playoffs right now, you probably have a roster that doesn't require T.Y. Hilton or Cole Beasley, Huss. But if you had to stash one of them, which one would you stash?
Beasley, for sure.
Gotta be Beasley, right?
I mean, just listen, he's going to walk in that dressing room. He's going to have familiarity with the quarterback, with the offense. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if he is a guy that actually is fantasy relevant at some point during the playoffs. I think it's more of a pickup for the actual NFL playoffs, but I think they're going to try and get him into the offense, give him some balls and see if he's still got it right now. And, in that slot receiver is particularly key in PPR leagues. I'm not sure if he's going to be going for 90 or 100 yards. But he's a pretty good safety blanket for Josh Allen to get open. And I think they've had sort of ups and downs at that slot receiver position. Isaiah McKenzie's been okay at times, but they're looking for a more consistent player. And I think that's Beasley, certainly by his body of work. So I think Beasley's definitely the guy. The other thing about Dallas is as long as you've got Michael Gallup and you've got CeeDee Lamb, and you've got Tony Pollard, there's only so many opportunities for a guy like T.Y. Hilton, barring injury, to really make an impact. So to me, it's clearly Beasley over T.Y.
All right, let's get into our starts of the week. Huss, where are you headed, buddy? Who do you like?
Well, you know what? We're going to start off at the quarterback position, and I am going to roll with Justin Herbert. Herbert finally has his receivers back, and I can't say how impressed I am with that performance that he had against the Miami Dolphins. A lot of people had written that team off. For obvious reasons, they'd stunk. Their offensive play calling is terrible. The area they were injured, gashed at offensive line. But man, you get Keenan Allen back, you get Mike Williams back, and all of a sudden we realize that, man, Justin Herbert can be a very, very, top level elite quarterback. I mean, I still think he's probably a top 5 quarterback in the league, although he was getting a lot of shit going into last week. It was a statement game for the Chargers. they'll have another opportunity to do that against the Tennessee Titans. And, we talked about yesterday. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I was watching most of the other games as opposed to Jacksonville, Tennessee. That should be a Thursday nighter, as we've discussed before. But, man, they give up tons of big plays. It happened again on the weekend, and you know that the Chargers are going to be slinging it right now. So I think Herbert, both for DFS, if you've got him on your fantasy team and you're in the playoffs, you're probably starting him anyways. But I think he's got a real big upside this week from the quarterback position. At running back, Isaiah Pacheco, as we talked about before, he's got to be in your lineup against the Houston Texans. I think this sets up to be his biggest game of the career. I'd almost bet I'll probably be taking some Pacheco props on the weekend. Wouldn't be surprised if he hits 100. I'll probably take an anytime touchdown on him. But the other guy, and this is very key to watch the injury report going into the weekend. The New England Patriots lost Ramondre Stevenson, as you well know, last night. Damian Harris was doubtful going into the game, but did end up playing a little bit. And then they had that third stringer that I never heard of before, Pierre, whatever his name is, getting into it.
Pierre Strong.
Yeah. So the Pats are against the Raiders, who were not particularly good at stopping the run. I really do think that if Harris is healthy, if he's able to practice and Ramondre Stevenson's out, we're looking at a massive Damian Harris game. And he's a guy, if for whatever reason he is on your waiver wire, I doubt he would be, but if he is, another key pickup that could help you in the next couple of weeks, depending on the severity of Ramondre Stevenson's injury. Stevenson's been so good. It's taken a lot of touches, and Harris has been hurt. But we've seen in the past, like last season, Bill Belichick, especially getting into December, was not shy at all to hand him the football 25 plus times in a game. So Harris, high upside, depending on the situation. Pacheco, though, the guy that I think is really going to blow up this week. Wide receiver, loving Michael Gallup. I think Gallup's a guy that could possibly win players' leagues right now. He has been, quietly, again, much like before we were just talking with T.Y. Hilton, we focus on Zeke and we focus on CeeDee Lamb. Gallup missed the first half of the season. With every single game, Dak Prescott gets more comfortable and relies more on Michael Gallup. He's got a great matchup against that Jags secondary. And I think considering the close call the Cowboys had last week against the Texans, similar to what I was talking about the Chiefs, I think they really floor it, try and, put up some big points and not have a sweat in the fourth quarter like they did last week. And I think that's going to be big Michael Gallup. And tight end, I mean, I don't know. I guess Dulcich and Denver, they're playing Arizona. Even if Russell Wilson is out, in fact, maybe even with a more traditional quarterback like Brett Rippon, I think the tight end position for checkdowns and whatnot might actually go up. He had 3 for 42 last week. Tight end position's a complete black hole right now. But if you're like me, you had Dawson Knox 1 week, he got 0. Noah Fant 1 week, he got 0. At this point, you're just looking for a guy that might catch a few freaking footballs. And I think Dulcich has been that guy, and obviously he's got a great matchup against Arizona.
Yeah, I'm going to start with I'll start with the quarterback. You kind of mentioned it a little bit in there with the matchup here against Jacksonville. Dak Prescott's going to be my starter of the week at the quarterback position. He's been top 15 every single week that he's played, so there really hasn't been a dud from him there. But you mentioned it. The Cowboys coming off this game against the Texans. I mean, there should be no let up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now Dak's overall upside limited a little bit just because he's got 2 running backs who've been playing so well. But I still think there could be a 3-touchdown game in this one for Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, kind of get everybody, Tony Pollard out of the backfield. So I do think the Cowboys are going to score a bunch of points on the Jags. So Dak will be my start of the week at the quarterback position. I'm going to go back to a guy who just had a monster week this week, but has a really nice matchup against the Chicago Bears. I'm going to go with Miles Sanders as my start of the week at the running back position. How about this for Miles Sanders? And, Miles Sanders, at the beginning of the year, nobody had any faith in Miles Sanders anymore. He was getting drafted in like the 6th, 7th round. You're like, oh, I guess I'll have to take Miles Sanders. He's top 5 in rushing this year. And in fantasy, the last 3 weeks, he's been the second best running back in PPR, the 23rd, and then the 3rd. So in 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's been a top 3 guy. I'm still not sure he's getting the respect he deserves. I acquired Miles Sanders in my Marvel superhero league there, Huss, early this year. Not pennies on the dollar, but I think the guy thought he was kind of selling high on him at the time. And I got him at a pretty reasonable rate. And it's been very good. I finished first in that league. I'm 11-3, and I'm in a pretty good spot here heading into the playoffs. Now I also have Jalen Hurts in that league, which certainly certainly helps.
I got to ask you, what is a Marvel superhero league? Are you in it
16
with
team
Iron
league.
Man and Spider-Man and the guys that you're going up against?
We all had to. I guess it was just a bunch of Marvel fans. It was a listener. And he invited me in. He's like, hey, so we would each put in like which superhero we'd like to be. And then, so this week, the Men of Steel, that's me, Superman, beat Deadshot. Or I played Deadshot this week. So yeah, it's kind of nerdy, buddy. But when you're 11-3, it doesn't matter how nerdy you are. I
thought you maybe got invited into a league with the actual superheroes. Iron Man's there, Robert Downey Jr.
Well, they do have that Avengers League, right? They have you seen that one? That looks like it with all the guys, all the superheroes. That's a league. I'd like to get in that. Dusty, Superman isn't Marvel. Well, it's a Marvel DC league. Calm down. Somebody just said on the YouTube chat. It's a Marvel / DC league. Yeah.
Watch that.
There's a DC division. There's a Marvel division.
Listen, you're on thin ice here, pal. It reminds me of the time I called Star Trek to a Star Wars person and made that mistake.
Oh, you can't do that. Yeah, I can't do that.
There was almost a fight.
That's the end of you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. My wide receiver start of the week this week kind of circles back around to picking up Mike White off of waivers if you want, but Garrett Wilson will be my start of the week at the wide receiver position, going up against the Detroit Lions. Detroit will still score on that Jets offense. I think they will score. So I do think, I don't know what the total is set for in that game, but I think this will be one of the higher scoring Jets games. And that's great news for Garrett Wilson. Since they made the quarterback change, Huss, here's Garrett Wilson for you. And before this, it looked like a disaster. As soon as they went away from Zach Wilson, this are his weekly finishes, PPR, wide receivers across the league. 16th, 11th, 78th, so I had one off week, 5, 9, and 27. Like, this guy has been a top 15 wide receiver since they made the quarterback change, and he's going up against the Detroit Lions this week. There will be, when we get to our props and parlay show, there will be a TD prop this week on Garrett Wilson later on in the lock shop as well. So that'll be my start of the week at the wide receiver position. And then tight end, like you said, Dalton Schultz. Start Dalton Schultz. He's one of the few reliable. Even Mark Andrews has sucked lately. Like, Mark Andrews, he's so far below Mark Andrews' expectations, but still above all these other bums at the tight end position. So, Dalton Schultz. Start Schultz at tight end. But how about Evan Ingram?
Tight end.
We've thrown Ingram out a few times as a waiver wire claim, Huss. And if people were listening, paid off this week. Holy smokes.
Yeah, no kidding. He's been, everything with tight end has basically been spinning a wheel if you don't have Kelsey or Andrews. Even George Kittle's sucked all year.
Yeah.
And he was the guy that basically was picked probably 3rd round, 4th round. Probably a lot of people that hung with Kittle that aren't sticking around in the playoffs right now this week. Although it's not like everyone else's tight end was killing it all year. I can't remember a season where there was so limited contribution from the majority of the tight ends in the NFL.
Yeah, it's sad. I'm very interested to see where all these guys end up getting drafted next year. That's going to do it for our Week 15 preview episode of The Lock Shop. Do want to throw out a quick note in case you're watching on hockey tonight. There is a partner parlay posted over on the exclusive page. If you want to get on that, it's the Leafs, the Oilers, and the Jets to win tonight. The Leafs have a really nice matchup. They get the Ducks, don't they? I can speak quickly on the Oilers. I think of all 3 games on this card, the Oilers might be the one that you might be a little nervous about after last night, but they've dominated Nashville. They're 8-0-1 against Nashville in their last 9. Leon Draisaitl has 18 goals in his last 9 games against the Nashville Predators. So I think for that reason alone, I'm pretty comfortable. The nervous part is Jack Campbell, I think, is going to start tonight, which is a little bit of a concern. But if you want it, it's over there. And the Jets, who do they get tonight? Who are the Jets on?
big matchup of the two first place teams in the West, the Vegas Golden Knights in town to take on Winnipeg. Right. But I'll say this about Winnipeg, and I mean, you know me, I rarely bet on my team, and when I do, it often goes poorly. See the Chiefs covering spreads all season long when they've been on the best bets. However, this is the spot for the Jets. Rick Bowness has already been talking about this, how they got waxed by Vegas twice in Vegas earlier this season. The Jets have only lost back-to-back games once all season long, and that was about a month and a half ago when they lost to Vegas and then the Leafs at home. And I think that we're going to see a Jets team that will come out ready to go. And on the Vegas side of things, Jack Eichel's on the IR, and we don't expect either Alex Pietrangelo or Shea Theodore and potentially Zach Whitecloud on their blue line.
Oh, wow.
So this is a juicy spot, and that line, I got on it yesterday at minus 122. I looked at it about an hour ago when it was already up to minus 135. So I think the Jets are a nice bet tonight against a depleted Vegas Golden Knights team. So get it in the exclusive, folks. A little midweek NHL partner parlay. Edmonton, Winnipeg represented, and you knew JBM would be throwing the Leafs down on there as well.
Can't get away from the Leafs with Jake Bolin Moss. Yeah, that's right. So,
and you Leaf fans out there, there's also in the exclusives a couple bets you can make for Mitch Marner's point streak to beat Pat Kane. Will he get to 30? So check it all out there. The exclusives have been very profitable. Borny had his winner last night. You got on the field goal.
You got that boring football extravaganza one last night. It was nice. That was really good. Just go exclusives on your phone or on the website, and you'll be able to get in on all of those. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow talking more. Well, I guess we got World Cup we can set up tomorrow, Huss. Get some NHL tickets out tomorrow night as well. So lots to discuss tomorrow on the Lock Shop.
Yeah, I will say this as we get ready for kickoff in the first semi. I am taking the favorites, Argentina, France, to meet in this weekend's final. It's been a nice run for Croatia and Morocco. It's made Canada look a bit better of the group of death, but I do think that we'll have Messi, Mbappe, and an amazing World Cup final. So if you want to get on that, you've got, if you're watching us live, you got about 25 minutes or so before they kick off in Doha.
We will talk to you tomorrow with another episode of The Lock Shop. And if you ever have any questions about your fantasy lineups, hit us up on Twitter. He's at HustlerM. I'm at Nielsen TSN 1260. We'll try to help you out.